The COB is brought to you by Pepperstone, trusted by traders in over 160 countries. From Barangaroo Studios, here's what you need to know about the day in business and finance.
Welcome to the COB. I'm Juliet Sarli, coming to you a little bit early today because it is the last day of the month, which means we have the last call show happening at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. We've got a great lineup today, including Olympic legend Jane Fleming, who's going to join us ahead of the Summer Olympics. Koshi's here as well, the whole team, so do stick around and join us from 3:30 Eastern. But for now, we're talking you through the action on the trading day, and I do need to timestamp this, that it is currently 17 minutes past 3 p.m. here in Sydney. So the market is not fully closed, but it is a pretty solid session, up 0.4%. The ASX 200 is higher as well today, with a gain there of around 0.2%, 7,777. We often do see a bit of buying coming through on the last day of the financial year. Window dressing is what they like to call it. So let's get to the three themes of the day. And certainly we saw that rally coming into the latter part of the day's trade yesterday, and some good gains today. Of course, we're coming into reporting season in August. Our companies trying to make sure that their bottom lines look good. It's always a speculative point, of course, but there has been some buying happening today. We're also on inflation watch ahead of the core PCE print coming through out of the US tonight. And France in focus as well, of course, with the key election and what that's going to mean for European markets, which did slip on Thursday. A little bit of investor caution ahead of the first round of the French elections. Let's get you caught up, though, on what we've seen sector-wise locally, including what we've seen in the insurance space. Of course, the tie-up between Suncorp and ANZ, lifting Suncorp shares at 1.17-year high. IAG, though, getting a bid from this too, of course, on speculation if there's going to be further mergers in that space. The banks as well, ANZ doing this tie-up with Suncorp, it's up by 1/3%. All the other majors looking solid. Some weakness, though, in the materials sector today. We did have gold high, but iron ore futures dipped. Base metal prices also slipping on the LME because you're seeing demand remaining lackluster in China. Aluminium and copper futures both lower. And a quick look on some of the tech players as well. WiseTech Global looking good there. All right, let's get to our Friday guest. Shane Oliver from AMP joins us. Shane, I guess your report card on what we've seen in share price performance, given we're now halfway through the year.
Look, it's been okay, but not flash. It seems every time you look at the screen, you see the calendar year to date, and it sort of varies between 0 and 3%, whereas in other parts of the world, we're seeing double-digit gains in many cases. So our market has been a bit of a laggard. A similar story over the last financial year. I think when I last looked, we're up about 12% in terms of total returns over the last financial year, the financial year ending today, whereas when you look at the US, it's something like 26%. So a bit of a messy underperformance by our market. But for most investors, 12% would be a pretty good return for the financial year as a whole. That chart just flashed up there showing the seasonal pattern. June is often a bit of an okay month. Historically, a bit of a dip in the Aussie market. I think so far this month we're up about 0.71% maybe. So it's turned out okay after that weakness we saw back in April, of course. But July tends to be a stronger month. And the months you need to be wary of are, of course, August and September, as you can see from that chart there. So we should still do okay in July, but August, September does have some concerns. And I'd have to say, when I look out over the next 6-12 months, the big concerns, of course, are in politics. The French election this weekend looks like the national rally will do well. Of course, the US election, we saw that shaky performance today by Biden against Trump. Markets so far don't seem too concerned about it, but of course, we know from 2018 that if we go into the sort of tariff hikes that Trump is talking about, which will make 2018 look like a non-event, then we could see a far more severe market reaction, much as we did back in 2018. 2018 was actually a pretty rough year for shares. So that does make me a little bit worried wary about the outlook. But apart from those things, apart from the politics, globally, I'd have to say the inflation numbers generally still going the right way.
Yeah.
Central banks still heading towards rate cuts, albeit it's going to be a slow and gradual process. Unfortunately, the other one out at present is Australia.
Yeah. All right, 2 points there. Let's pick up on the CPI first, because I do want to come back to Biden and Trump. I mean, hotter than expected CPI read, which is suggesting that we could see a rate hike. I note in your weekly note that you say that a rate hike is not a fait accompli, and your base case remains that rates have peaked. But certainly this did catch many people off guard, the high inflationary pressure, Shane.
They certainly did, and it caught us off guard. We were thinking 3.8. There was always going to be a base effect there because you had a big negative monthly number a year ago dropping out of the annual calculation. So that's why it was always going to rise from 3.6 to 3.8. But, the extra bit there was a bit of a shock, particularly in terms of the trim mean, which you can see in that chart there has now risen for several months in a row. So that's a concern. I am conscious, though, US inflation also surprised on the upside this year for 3 months in a row, January, February, March. The Fed, at one point there was talk maybe the Fed will have to raise rates again. In the event, that seems to have faded again, and we're seeing lower inflation numbers yet again in the US. So I think we may go through a similar pattern. That's why I think there is a danger of jumping at shadows here. And I only just saw this morning that the new Deputy Governor, who did a great speech last night, I thought, in talking up Australia and the positives here. We often lose track of those positives. But he, in response to a question, did say we shouldn't jump at just 1 month's worth of data. And I am conscious that that monthly inflation number does give us a bum steer every so often. It up to February, it was pointing to a softish number for the March quarter. And then, of course, we got the March quarter numbers which are on the upside. So it's quite possible the upsides recently could be exaggerating the upwards pressure on inflation. So we've got to be a little bit wary of that monthly CPI.
Yeah, indeed. And sorry, Shane.
I think the broader risk. Yep. Sorry.
I was just going to say, because it is a shortened show, unfortunately, today, but I did want to just get your thoughts on what we saw with the Biden-Trump debate, the shaky, I guess, performance from both, you could say, in one sense, but it does seem in terms of polling, this is going to be another Trump win.
That's the way it's heading. Trump was already ahead in the poll averages by 1.5, 2 points. Predicted already had him ahead. That's the betting markets, and that spiked to something like 60% at one stage today. There, probability of victory for Trump versus Biden down in the 30s. So depressing if you're a Biden supporter. And I must admit, I do find it depressing that this is the best that America can come up with. There's lots of great Americans on both sides of politics. So I do find this a little bit depressing. I worry that Trump is not good for democracy, not good for institutions that have served us well over many years, and the prospect of a big trade war with China and potentially including us. They're talking about a 10% tariff on imports from anywhere. That's not a good thing. So that does raise some concerns. Obviously, there's still several months to go yet, so maybe those numbers will reverse. But at this stage, yes, the trend is favouring Trump.
All right, Shane, thank you as always. And of course, your podcast as well on Simplify Investing. We'll have that linked in our newsletter this afternoon. We'll see you again next Friday at the regular time. Thank you, Shane. Shane Oliver from AMP. A quick look at some of the top stories today. We had Adore Beauty to acquire local beauty and wellness brand Ikou for $25 million in an all-cash deal. Shares actually fell today. The Reject Shop also in focus. Andrew Wolf will be new CFO, Patrick Myers as Chief Commercial Officer. And also, of course, looking at that tie-up between Suncorp and ANZ, which will see ANZ overtake NAB to become the third largest bank in Australia, after Treasurer Jim Chalmers gave the final tick of approval for the $4.9 million proposed acquisition of Suncorp, paving the way for the banks to merge. Quick look as well in terms of what our stock of the day was, which was ANZ.
It actually isn't a bad deal for Suncorp shareholders. ANZ, I think, has got a fair bit of integration to happen, so I think that's going to be a little bit tough. I wouldn't be a holder of ANZ In fact, the banks are a pretty tough space, and we've got another bank coming up as well later in the show. So for me, it'll be a no for ANZ. I'm not a fan, but happy to hold buy Suncorp.
I think the domestic insurance business is actually pretty good. So I think both Suncorp and IAG had a result today, had a upgrade as well. Both very, very strong. And I think domestic premium rate is still doing quite well, and which is a little bit different from the US market, where US, looking at rate cuts and the like. So there potentially will be a bit more pressure further down the track. But domestically, I think things are going quite well. Plus, Suncorp now will have a bunch of cash, and they will buy back capital.
Okay. What would you do with Suncorp then?
I'll buy.
Buy? Yep.
Okay, we are of course timestamping this, that there is still 33 minutes of trade left to go on the final day of the financial year for markets. But these are the leaders as where we stand now. Strike Energy, IAG, De Grey Mining, Fletcher Building and Emerald Resources. To the downside today, Charter Hall, Pilbara Minerals, Arcadium Lithium, Mineral Resources and IGO. A quick look as well at what we've seen with the small caps today. Actinogen Medical had a very good day, up 30%. To the downside in the small cap space, these stocks on your screen, including Immutep and Novonix, all lower today. Of course, we are on watch for the core PCE price index out of the US. That is the Fed's main preferred measure of inflation. Canada also coming through with their GDP print, and one of the Federal Reserve governors will be speaking in the US tonight. We often hear from many of those. Over the weekend, the France election results, the CoreLogic home prices coming through next week. We've got Canada Day on July 1st, Bank Holiday on July 4th in the US, Independence Day, and Europe unemployment rate. And I think as well, there's also quite a lot in terms of China data coming through next week too, and retail sales locally. All right, look, we're off the highs of the day. So is there a little bit of selling happening into the close here, but still up 0.4%. Shane was giving us that view of where we've seen the markets over the course of the month. The ASX 200 is down 0.4% over the week. And when we look at the month of June, we are down, we're pretty flat actually, but we will see where we finish up in terms of the month of June. Of course, it is the end of financial year, hard to believe, but we have our very special June, the last call, coming up next. Stick with us.
The COB is brought to you by Pepperstone, trusted by traders in over 160 countries.
Gil.
Oh, hey, Ken.
Here we go.
You still trading?
Pepperstone. Trusted in over 160 countries. You?
Well, I'm still with...
I don't think anyone trusts them.
No, I'm fine with it. Just like I'm fine with my trusty coach. 1980s John McEnroe.
Pathetic! Horrible! 1980s, huh? So, really temperamental?
Keeps me on my toes.
Awful! It's a bit intense.
Be better!
Still fine with it.
Use your racket!
He's just staring at us.
Yeah, sometimes he yells and then sometimes he just stares.
Is he aiming for your face, Gil?
He's fine with it!
Yeah, he's definitely trying to hit you.
Fine with it.
Don't be fine with it. Switch to Pepperstone, trusted by traders in over 160 countries.
Come on, you cannot be serious!
Don't do that.
Ow.